Doctors in the 1860s prescribed mercury until your teeth fell out and your jawbone began to rot, convinced that the drooling was a sign the medicine was working. They called it heroic medicine, but there was nothing heroic about dying in a pool of your own chemically induced fluids while a surgeon wiped a bloody knife on his boot sole. Welcome to dulled history. Tonight, we are peeling back the romanticized bandages of the American Civil War to look at the grim reality of military medicine, a time when a trip to the infirmary was often more lethal than a charge across an open field. We aren't talking about glory or strategy tonight. We are examining the pills, powders, and purgatives that killed twice as many men as bullets ever did. In this era, germ theory was a laughable rumor, sterilization was non-existent, and the cure for dysentery was often a toxic heavy metal that destroyed the body from the inside out. We are going to walk through the experience of falling ill in a Union or Confederate camp, tracing the path from the first shiver of fever to the terrifying realization that the doctor's bag holds no salvation. It is a story of ignorance, agony, and the terrifying vulnerability of the human body before modern science. So adjust your volume, settle into the dark, and let go of the day. You are about to step into a world where the water is gray, the bandages are reused, and the medicine is poison. The year is 1862, and the dawn is struggling to break through a heavy, suffocating mist that clings to the low ground of a Virginia encampment. You are lying on a bed of damp straw, wrapped in a wool blanket that smells of wet dog, wood smoke, and the sour, unmistakable odor of unwashed men. The cold ground seeps through the thin layer of bedding, stiffening your joints before you've even attempted to move. Outside the canvas walls of the Sibley tent, the camp is already stirring the coughing of sentries, the clank of tin cups, and the distant, rhythmic chopping of wood. Your focus is entirely internal, centered on the sharp, twisting cramp in your abdomen that woke you long before the bugle call. You sit up, the wool scratching against your neck, and take a drink from a canteen that has been resting near your head. The water is tepid and tastes faintly of the cedar wood stopper and the creek mud from which it was drawn yesterday. This is the first gamble of the day. You know in a vague, abstract way that the water is bad. You've seen the horses drinking upstream and the latrines dug too close to the bank, but thirst is a primal command that overrides caution. You swallow the metallic, murky liquid, hoping it settles the fire in your gut, but deep down, you know the sickness has already taken hold. This is how it begins, not with a dramatic wound, but with a microscopic invasion you cannot see and do not understand. You crawl out of the tent into the gray morning light. The camp is a sprawling, chaotic city of canvas and mud, stretching as far as the tree line. The air is thick, hanging heavy with the exhaust of 10,000 men living in close quarters without plumbing. It is a sensory assault, the acrid bite of green wood burning in cookfires, the ammonia stench of the mule lines, and the underlying sweet-sick decay of the latrines, or sinks, as the men call them. You pull your coat tighter, shivering not just from the morning chill, but from the fever beginning to prickle at the back of your neck. Today you will not be drilling. Today you are headed to the surgeon's call. Walking through the company street, you pass men frying salt pork in grease that has been saved and reused for a week. The smell, usually appetizing, now turns your stomach. You make your way toward the regimental hospital tent, distinguished by the yellow flag hanging limp in the damp air. A line has already formed a ragged queue of men clutching their stomachs, nursing wrapped hands, or simply standing with the hollow, glazed look of the camp fever. The mud here is deeper, churned by the traffic of the sick and the dying. You join the line, listening to the man ahead of you cough with a wet, rattling sound that seems to originate from the bottom of his lungs. The medical philosophy of the time is built on a foundation of humors, the ancient idea that health is a balance of fluids, and illness is an excess of one that must be violently expelled. The surgeon inside that tent isn't looking to comfort you. He is looking to purge you. When it is finally your turn, you duck under the canvas flap. The air inside is warmer but heavier, smelling of stale sweat, chloroform, and something metallic like old pennies. The surgeon is a harried man with dark circles under his eyes and a frock coat stained with the dried evidence of yesterday's amputations. He does not wear a white coat. He wears his street clothes, stiff with grime, because in 1862, a blood-stiffened coat is a badge of experience, not a vector of infection. He barely looks at you. He asks your name and your complaint while wiping a scalpel on a rag that looks like it was once a shirt. You describe the cramps, the fever, the looseness of the bowels. He nods, uninterested. It is the same story he has heard 50 times this morning. To him, you are a clogged system that needs to be flushed. He reaches into his field chest, a wooden box filled with glass vials and tin containers, and produces the universal answer to the soldier's ailment, the blue mass pill. The pill is a small, soft, blue-gray sphere, roughly the size of a pea. It looks harmless enough, perhaps like a bit of candy or a ball of clay, but it is composed of 33% elemental mercury, mixed with licorice root, rose water, honey, and sugar to mask the taste. The surgeon drops 2 of them into your palm. Take these, he says, and report back if you aren't cleared out by tomorrow. He doesn't tell you that this medicine is a heavy metal neurotoxin. He believes, with the full weight of his medical training, that the mercury will stimulate your liver and force the bile, the sickness out of your body. You swallow the pills dry. They taste chalky and sweet, dissolving quickly in your stomach. Almost immediately, the chemistry of the mercury begins to interact with the hydrochloric acid in your gut, converting from elemental mercury into mercuric chloride, a potent, corrosive poison. But for now, you feel nothing but the lingering sweetness of the rose water. You are dismissed, sent back to your tent to wait for the cure to take effect. As you walk back, the camp is fully awake. The sheer logistics of keeping an army alive are in motion, and they are terrifying in their lack of sanitation. You watch a detail of men butchering a cow near the edge of the clearing. They are covered in blood, their hands deep in the animal's entrails. Once the meat is quartered, they wipe their hands on their trousers and walk over to the water barrels, the same barrels you drink from to rinse off. There is no soap. Soap is a luxury, a ration item that is often traded for tobacco or lost in the march. The water in the barrel clouds with blood and grease, and 10 minutes later, you see a drummer boy dip a ladle into that same barrel to fill his cup. You return to your tent and lie down, the straw mattress feeling harder than before. The camp sounds mute and warped as the fever rises. You close your eyes, trying to ignore the cramping that is beginning to intensify, not from the dysentery this time, but from the mercury beginning its work. The doctors call this salivation. They believe that if you start drooling excessively, the medicine is working. They want to see you produce pints of saliva, believing the illness is flowing out of your glands. What is actually happening is acute heavy metal poisoning. Your gums will soon become inflamed, turning a spongy, dark red. Your breath will take on a fetid, metallic odor that is distinct and horrifying. If the dosage is high enough, or if you are given these pills day after day, as many men are, your teeth will loosen in their sockets. But in the logic of 1862, this physical devastation is interpreted as progress. You lie there, listening to the wind snap the canvas, unaware that the cure is dismantling your body's ability to repair itself. The mercury is attacking your kidneys and your nervous system, even as you pray for it to stop the dysentery. The sun climbs higher, burning off the morning mist but doing nothing to lift the humidity. The tent becomes an oven. The air grows heavy and still, trapping the smells of the camp. You can hear the sounds of drilling on the parade ground, the rhythmic thud of boots, the bark of sergeants, the clatter of muskets. It feels a world away. Your world has shrunk to the 6 feet of ground you occupy and the erratic, painful rhythm of your own internal organs. A comrade ducks into the tent, bringing with him a tin plate of beans and hardtack. The food is unappealing, a gray, congealed mass. The hardtack is a square cracker so dense it must be soaked in coffee or water to be edible. You wave it away. The soldier looks at you with a mixture of pity and fear. In the army, sickness is contagious in more ways than one. It is a reminder of mortality that has nothing to do with bravery. He leaves the plate on a crate and backs out, eager to be away from the smell of illness. You drift in and out of a fevered sleep. In your lucid moments, you observe the microscopic details of the tent canvas, the weave of the fabric, the small dark spots of mildew, the way the light filters through in a dusty, golden haze. You watch a fly land on your blanket, rubbing its legs together. It has likely just come from the latrines, carrying on its tiny feet the bacteria of 1,000 sick men, Salmonella typhi Shigella, but you don't know this. You just swat it away sluggishly. By early afternoon, the heroic nature of the medicine makes itself known. The purging begins. It is violent and exhausting, depleting your body of the very fluids it desperately needs to retain. You are forced to make repeated, agonizing trips to the sinks, or if you are too weak, to use a bucket in the tent. The dignity of privacy is the first casualty of army life. The dignity of the body is the second. You are turning inside out, and the surgeon would tell you this is good. This is the bad blood leaving. In reality, the lining of your intestines is inflamed, stripped raw by the dysentery and irritated further by the mercury. You are dehydrated, your eyes sinking into your skull, your skin losing its elasticity. If you were to pinch the skin on the back of your hand, it would stay tented, a ridge of flesh slow to flatten. Later in the day, the surgeon's assistant to hospital steward makes rounds. He is not a doctor. He is likely a soldier detailed from the ranks because he could read and write, or perhaps just because he had the stomach for it. He carries a bottle of whiskey and a pouch of quinine powder. This is the second line of defense. Quinine is a miracle drug for malaria, a bitter white powder derived from the bark of the cinchona tree. But in the Civil War, it is used as a catch-all tonic. The steward mixes a heaping spoonful of the bitter powder into a tin cup of raw, burning whiskey. "Drink," he commands. You sit up, your head swimming, and down the mixture. It tastes like bile and fire. The whiskey hits your empty stomach like a fist, providing a momentary false warmth, while the quinine coats your mouth in a bitterness that no amount of water can wash away. The alcohol dulls the pain slightly, blurring the sharp edges of your misery. This is often the extent of pain management. Opium for the lucky, whiskey for the rest. The steward checks your pulse, his fingers rough and smelling of tobacco. He nods, marks something in a small ledger, and moves to the next tent. You are just a name on a list, a logistical problem to be managed. If you die, you are a casualty statistic. If you recover, you are a rifleman returned to the line. As the afternoon wears on, you begin to notice the side effects of the quinine. A ringing starts in your ears, a high-pitched whine like a distant cicada that won't stop. It's called synchronism, a sign of toxicity, but like the drooling from the mercury, it is often ignored. The world takes on a slightly surreal quality, the edges of your vision blurring. You feel untethered from the earth, floating on a raft of nausea and chemical dizziness. You look at the plate of cold beans nearby. A rat, bold and sleek, has scurried under the tent flap and is nibbling at the hardtack. You watch it without emotion. The rat is a constant companion in the camps. They grow large here, fed on the refuse of the army. This one is dark gray, its fur matted. It looks at you with bead-black eyes, sensing your lethargy. It knows you are not a threat. In the trenches and the camps, the wildlife adapts quickly. The rats, the lice, the flies, they are the true beneficiaries of the war. You pull your blanket up, covering your head to block out the light and the sight of the rat. The wool itches against your fevered skin. You can feel the lice moving in the seams of your shirt, a constant, crawling irritation that you have long since ceased to fight. They are called graybacks, and every soldier has them. You spend your evenings popping them over a candle flame, listening to the tiny snaps, but they always return. Now too weak to hunt them, you simply serve as their host. The mercury in your system is silent now, but it is settling into your tissues. It binds to the enzymes in your cells, disrupting their function. It is accumulating in your kidneys, which are already straining to filter the toxins from the dehydration. It is a slow poison, a cumulative debt that your body will pay for weeks, months, or years if you survive the week. The sun begins to dip lower, casting long, distorted shadows against the canvas walls. The noise of the camp changes. The drilling stops. The woodchopping slows. The smell of cooking fires returns, stronger now. You hear the laughter of men playing cards, the low murmur of conversation. Life goes on just outside your fabric walls, vibrant and indifferent to your suffering. You think about the surgeon again. He is likely eating his dinner now, perhaps wiping his hands on a napkin, believing he has done good work today. He is not a villain. He is a man doing his best in an age of darkness. He reads the medical manuals that tell him to bleed the congested, to purge the sick, to blister the skin, to draw out inflammation. He is following the science of his day, a science that is tragically, lethally wrong. He does not know that the pus he sees in a healing wound, which he calls laudable pus, is actually a sign of a raging staph infection. He welcomes it. He encourages it. He transfers it from man to man with his unwashed probe, thinking he is spreading healing when he is spreading death. Your stomach cramps again, a sharp reminder that the cure is still working its way through you. You curl into a ball, knees to chest, trying to preserve body warmth as the evening chill begins to settle. The ground beneath you feels harder, the straw thinner. You are alone in the crowd, isolated by pain and the haze of medication. Somewhere in the distance, a band starts to play. The brassy, melancholy notes of the Bonnie Blue Flag or the battle cry of freedom drift through the humid air. The music is beautiful and jarring against the reality of your condition. It speaks of glory, of flags and honor. does not speak of the latrine trenches, the gray skin of the dysentery ward, or the teeth falling out from mercury poisoning. You close your eyes and focus on breathing. In, out, in, out. The air is cooling, bringing a slight relief to your fevered brow. You have survived the morning. You have survived the doctor's first assault. But the night is coming, and with it, the true darkness of the hospital camp. The medicines are dissolving in your blood, chemical ghosts haunting your veins. You are a battlefield, not of North against South, but of biology against chemistry, of resilience against ignorance. And as the light fades, you drift into a fitful drug-induced twilight, waiting to see what the darkness will bring. The camp settles. The fires burn down to embers. The sentries begin their long, lonely pacing. And you, the soldier, the patient, the victim of heroic medicine, float in the limbo between the living and the dead, held there by a blue pill and a cup of whiskey. This is the reality of 1862. This is the silence before the true suffering begins. The night in a Civil War hospital tent does not fall, it suffocates. The transition from the gray, humid twilight to the pitch black of the evening is not a relief but a sealing of the tomb. You wake, or perhaps you simply drift back into a higher state of consciousness, to find the world has shrunk to the radius of a single tallow candle burning on a crate at the far end of the ward. Silence you expected is absent. Instead, the air is filled with a low, oceanic murmur of suffering, the rustle of straw, the wet coughing of lungs filled with fluid, the delirious muttering of men arguing with ghosts, and the soft, rhythmic dripping of something liquid hitting the packed earth floor. Your own body feels foreign, a heavy, aching vessel that no longer obeys your commands. The mercury you swallowed earlier has begun to manifest its specific toxic alchemy. The first thing you notice is the taste. It is no longer just a metallic tang. It is a pervasive, copper-heavy flavor that coats your tongue and the roof of your mouth, as if you have been chewing on lead shot. Your mouth feels full, impossibly wet. You turn your head to the side, spitting a thick, ropey saliva onto the dirt. This is the tilism the doctors look for, the sign that the mercury is touching the gums. To them, it is the herald of cure. To your body, it is the desperate attempt to dilute a poison that is seeping into your soft tissues. Tent flaps have been tied shut. The medical theory of the 1860s holds that fresh night air is dangerous, a carrier of miasmas that rise from swamps and damp earth to infect the sleeping. So, to protect you, they have sealed you in with the very things that are killing you. The air inside is stagnant, thick with the exhalations of 40 sick men, the smell of unwashed wool, and the unmistakable sweet-rotten scent of infection. It hangs in the humid warmth, a physical weight that presses against your... You shift your legs, the wool blanket scratching against skin that feels sensitive and feverish. The cramps in your abdomen have dulled to a constant, grinding ache, a background noise to the sharper discomfort in your mouth. You watch the shadows dance on the canvas roof as the hospital steward moves between the rows of pallets. He is a silhouette, a darker patch of gray against the gloom, carrying the candle and a tin bucket. He is the night watchman of this purgatory, likely a convalescent soldier himself, detailed to this duty because he can walk and carry a bucket. He stops at the cot of the man next to you. In the flickering light, you can see the neighbor is a young private, perhaps 18, with a bandage wrapped heavily around his lower leg. The fabric of the dressing is stained a dark, crusty brown. The boy is awake, his eyes wide and glassy, staring up at the canvas ceiling as if reading a map written in the mildew stains. The steward sets the candle down on the ground, the flame sputtering in the bad air, casting long, jumping shadows that make the tent poles look like the bars of a cage. You watch, unable to look away, as the steward prepares to dress the wound. There is no sterilization here. The concept of bacteria is a fantasy of the future. The steward reaches into his bucket of water that has been used to rinse the wounds of a dozen men before this one. The water is opaque, a swirling soup of blood, pus, and microscopic death. He pulls out a natural sea sponge, gray and porous. This single sponge is the most dangerous weapon in the tent. It has touched the gangrenous flesh of a soldier 3 cots down, picked up the streptococcus bacteria, and is now about to deliver it directly into the open veins of the boy next to you. The steward wrings the sponge out, the dirty water splashing back into the bucket with a wet slop. He begins to dab at the boy's leg. The boy winces, his hand gripping the straw of his mattress, knuckles white. The steward is not gentle, he is efficient. He has 50 men to tend to before dawn. He wipes away the bad humors, scrubbing at the edges of the wound. You can smell it from where you lie, a scent distinct from the latrines or the sweat. It is the smell of biology breaking down, of meat spoiling in the heat. It is the smell of hospital gangrene, a condition so common it is almost regarded as a stage of healing. The steward finishes, tossing the sponge back into the infectious slurry of the bucket. He reaches into a pouch and pulls out a handful of lint. This is not sterile cotton. It is often scraped from old linen rags, sometimes donated by ladies' aid societies who sat in parlors scraping tablecloths with knives to create the fluffy pile. It is soft, yes, but it is far from clean. He packs the lint onto the raw flesh, binding it tight with a strip of reused muslin that has been washed in the local creek, the same creek the horses stand in. Rest now, the steward mumbles, picking up his bucket and his candle. He moves to the next man, taking the bacteria with him, a pollinator of infection moving flower to flower in the garden of the sick. You turn your head away, closing your eyes, but the image burns behind your lids. The ignorance is total. It's not malicious, it is simply the darkness of the era. You wonder in your fevered haze why the wounds never seem to heal, why a scratch can turn into an amputation, why the man with the broken arm died of a fever 3 days later. The answers are floating in the water bucket, living in the sponge, hiding in the lint. Your own condition demands attention. The mercury is making your gums throb. You run your tongue over your teeth. They feel high, as if they have been pushed up from the jawbone. They feel loose. This is not a hallucination. The mercury is causing the periodontal ligaments to dissolve. If you were to take another dose tomorrow, and the day after, the teeth would begin to detach. You have seen men in the regiment who can only eat soft bread because their teeth sit in their gums like pebbles in soft mud. A thirst takes you, sudden and overwhelming. It is a thirst that feels like it originates in the marrow of your bones. You reach for your canteen, your hand trembling. The metal is cool, sweating with condensation in the humid air. You uncork it and drink. The water is warm and tastes of the tin, but it soothes the fire in your throat for a moment. But then the aftertaste hits, the bitterness of the quinine you were given earlier. The drug is still in your system, ringing in your ears. The silence of the tent is overlaid with a high-pitched electronic whine, a phantom frequency that rises and falls with your pulse. You lie back, staring into the darkness. Time loses its structure here. There are no clocks, only the intervals between the steward's rounds and the rhythm of your own discomfort. You drift into a light, uneasy sleep, the kind where the mind remains half awake, constructing vivid, nonsensical narratives from the sensory input of the room. In this semi-dream state, the tent becomes a cavern. The coughing of the men transforms into the echoing bark of seals in a sea cave. The heat becomes the warmth of a hearth at home, but a hearth that has burned too hot, scorching the air. You remember the winter before the war, the clean, sharp cold of the morning, the smell of pine and snow. It feels like a memory from a different life, belonging to a different person. That person didn't know what dysentery was. That person didn't know the smell of a reusable bandage. That person believed that doctors healed and medicine cured. You wake with a start. A sound has cut through the drone of the ward. It is a man crying. It is not the cry of a child, nor the scream of a wounded man in battle. It is the low, broken sobbing of a man who has reached the end of his endurance. It comes from the shadows near the entrance. You cannot see him, but you can hear the exhaustion in the sound. He is crying for his mother, a common sound in these tents. Men who have charged cannon positions without flinching, who have marched barefoot over frozen ground, revert to childhood in the grip of typhoid or sepsis. The steward is there again, his candle casting a halo around the weeping man. You hear the clink of glass. The steward is administering the black drop, opium and vinegar, or perhaps it is morphine, dusted directly onto a wound or dissolved in water. Opium is the great mercy of the war. It is the only thing that truly stops the pain, the only thing that stops the dysentery cramps, the only thing that brings the deep velvet sleep. But the supply is often low, reserved for the surgical cases, the amputees, the men with gut wounds. For a man with camp fever like you, there is only the blue pill and the quinine. You watch the weeping man's shadow quiet down, his sobbing fading into a heavy, drugged breathing. You feel a pang of jealousy. You want the oblivion. You want the darkness to be absolute, not this fevered twilight where every sensation is magnified. The night wears on, stretching into the small hours. The air in the tent grows heavier as the temperature outside drops slightly, causing the humidity inside to condense on the canvas and drip down. A drop lands on your forehead, cool and startling. It is distilled from the breath of the sick, a cycle of moisture that never leaves the tent. Your stomach cramps again, a slow, twisting knot that forces you to curl onto your side. The mercury is purging you, but it is a dry, painful purge now. There is nothing left to expel but the lining of the gut itself. You feel hollowed out, a husk of skin and bone wrapped in wool. The pain is exhausting, a physical labor that leaves you breathless. You wonder if this is how it ends, not with a bullet, but with a bowel movement, dissolving into the dirt floor of a Sibley tent while a stranger snores 3 feet away. You focus on the lantern flame at the end of the ward. It is the only anchor in the shifting reality. It burns steady and yellow, consuming the tallow, just as the fever consumes you. You try to calculate how long you have been here. 2 days, 3. The days blur together, punctuated only by the surgeon's call and the arrival of the food cart. The concept of a week or a month is meaningless. There is only the now, and the now is pain. Around 3:00 a.m., the atmosphere in the tent changes. It is the hour of the wolf, the time when the body's resistance is at its lowest, when the fever burns hottest and the will to live flickers. The coughing seems to intensify for a moment, a collective spasm of the ward before settling into a deeper, more ominous quiet. You hear a rustling from the cot where the boy with the leg wound lies. He is thrashing quietly, his legs kicking at the blanket. He is murmuring something unintelligible, a rapid-fire stream of words that makes no sense. "The corn is too high," he says clearly. "The corn is too high, pull it down." The fever has taken his mind. He is back in a field somewhere, or perhaps in the cornfield at Antietam, lost in the stalks. The steward does not come. He is likely asleep on a crate near the door, exhausted by the endless rounds. The boy's thrashing grows more violent. His hand strikes your shoulder, a weak, flailing blow. You recoil, but you are too weak to move away. You lie there, listening to his delirium, feeling the heat radiating from his body. It is a dry, burning heat, like a stone left in a fire. You know with the instinctive diagnosis of the veteran that the infection has gone systemic. The poison of the gangrene is in his blood. You reach out a hand, your fingers brushing his sleeve. "Easy," you whisper, your voice rasping and unfamiliar to your own ears. "Easy, son." He stops moving for a second, his head turning toward you. In the dim light, his eyes are black holes. He doesn't see you. He sees whatever the fever is showing him. Then he sighs a long, shuddering exhale that seems to deflate his entire frame. He goes still. You withdraw your hand. You lie there listening for his breath. It comes ragged and shallow, then pauses, then comes again. He is still here, for now. The isolation of the experience is total. You are surrounded by men, yet you have never been more alone. The battle was a communal experience. You moved as a unit, fought as a line, drew courage from the touch of shoulders. Here, the battle is entirely internal. No one can help you fight the mercury. No one can help you fight the bacteria. You are sieged within your own skin. You think of the letter you have in your knapsack, the one you started writing 3 days ago but haven't finished. The pencil lead was dull, and your hand shook too much. You wanted to tell them you were fine, just a little under the weather. You didn't want to worry them. You realize now that you might never finish it. The thought brings a wave of profound sadness, not for yourself, but for the piece of paper that will remain unsigned, a sentence cut off in the middle. The metallic taste in your mouth surges again, a wave of nausea accompanying it. You lean over the side of the cot, retching dryly. Your body is trying to reject the poison, but the poison is already part of you. You spit again, the saliva stringy and dark in the gloom. You wipe your mouth with the back of your hand, the skin feeling rough and papery. As the hours creep toward dawn, a subtle shift occurs. The blackness of the tent ceiling begins to turn a deep, bruised purple. The sounds of the camp outside begin to bleed in the first rooster crowing from a nearby farm, the distant challenge of a picket guard, the stamp of a horse. The world of the living is waking up. Inside, the transition is marked by the smell of coffee. Somewhere, a cookfire has been lit. The smell is faint, mixing with the odors of the ward, but it is distinct. It smells of charcoal and burnt beans. It is the perfume of the army. It signals that you have survived the night. The steward wakes, stretching and yawning, his joints popping. He picks up the candle, which has burned down to a nub, and blows it out. The sudden absence of the flame makes the gray light of dawn seem even colder. He begins his morning rounds, not with medicine this time, but with a checklist. He moves from cot to cot, looking for the stillness that indicates a vacancy. He reaches the boy next to you. He stands over him for a long moment, looking down. He reaches out and touches the boy's neck. He holds his hand there for a second, then pulls the blanket up, covering the boy's face. You watch this with a dull acceptance. There is no shock. The boy fought his battle in the cornfield of his mind, and he lost. The steward makes a mark in his small book. He looks at you, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "How are you holding up?" he asks, his voice rough with sleep. You try to speak, but your tongue is swollen, filling your mouth. You manage a nod. You are alive. That is the only status report that matters. "Good," he says, moving on. "Surgeon will be around in an hour. Drink some water." Two men enter the tent carrying a stretcher. They are the pioneers, or perhaps just detailed privates, their uniforms dirty and ill-fitting. They move to the boy's cot. They do not speak. They lift the body, wrapped in the blanket, onto the canvas stretcher. The boy is light. The dysentery and the fever burn the weight off a man quickly. They carry him out, his bare foot slipping out from under the blanket, the heel pale and dirty against the dark canvas. You watch the foot bobbing as they walk away. That is the procession. No drums, no flag, just a quick trip to the dead house, a separate tent where the bodies are stacked until the burial detail can dig the trenches. The light in the tent grows stronger, revealing the squalor that the darkness had hidden. You see the stains on your own blanket, the mud on the floor, the gray pallor of the men around you. The romance of the night, the dramatic shadows are gone. Now it is just a dirty tent filled with sick men. The mercury in your gut gives a sudden, sharp twist, a reminder that it is not done with you. The cure is a multi-day process. You have only just begun the regimen. Today, the doctor will likely look at your drooling mouth, at the inflammation of your gums, and nod with satisfaction. You will see the poison doing its work and think he is saving you. He might even prescribe another dose to maintain the effect. You close your eyes against the light, feeling the exhaustion settle into your bones like lead. The night is over, but the nightmare continues. You are a soldier of the sick list, a warrior of the ward, and your battle for the day, the battle to keep your teeth, your kidneys, and your life is just beginning. The bugle sounds reveille in the distance, a bright, mocking call that demands you rise and shine. You simply pull the wool tighter and wait for the surgeon's shadow to fall across your face. The morning routine of the hospital camp begins to churn around you. It is a machine of logistics and suffering, fueled by bad water and worse medicine. You lie still, conserving every ounce of energy, knowing that survival here is not about courage or strength. It is about endurance. It is about outlasting the cure. As the sun hits the canvas, warming the stagnant air, you prepare yourself for the day. You check your teeth with your tongue again. Still there, loose but there. You swallow the metallic saliva. You breathe in the smell of the morning coffee, smoke, and gangrene. You are still here. And in 1862, in a regimental hospital, that is the only victory you can claim. The blue pill is dissolving, the mercury is circulating, and the war goes on, inside and out. The sun has climbed to its zenith, burning through the morning mist and turning the canvas roof of the hospital tent into a radiant, suffocating heat trap. The damp chill of the night has evaporated, replaced by a heavy, humid stillness that presses against your skin like a physical weight. Inside the tent, the air has stopped moving. It hangs suspended, thick with the smells that heat always amplifies. The ammonia of the latrines, the copper scent of old blood, the sourness of unwashed bodies, and the cloying sweetness of the chloroform drifting from the surgery tent across the way. You are sitting on the edge of your cot, your boots unlaced, staring at the patch of packed earth between your feet. The simple act of sitting up has left you lightheaded, the horizon of the tent tilting gently to the left. The mercury and the quinine are still warring in your blood, but the primary sensation now is a dull, expansive exhaustion. It is the boredom of the invalid, the slow, grinding passage of time, where the only milestones are the movements of the sun and the arrival of the rations. It is midday, and the camp is alive with the business of war, but you are separated from it by a wall of sickness. You can hear the distant sounds of the regiment, the clatter of the supply wagons, the shout of a sergeant drilling the healthy men, the ring of a blacksmith's hammer on an anvil. Those are the sounds of the living, of the men who can still march and shoot. Here in the hospital ward, the sounds are smaller, more intimate. The rustle of straw, the buzzing of a fly, the scratch of wool against skin. That scratching is constant. It is the defining sensation of the Civil War soldier, more ubiquitous than hunger or fear. You are covered in lice. They are called graybacks, zouaves, or simply vermin, and they are the undisputed masters of the camp. No rank is spared. Generals and privates alike spend their evenings reading their shirts, searching the seams for the parasites. But you are too weak to hunt them effectively. You feel them moving along your spine, under the waistband of your trousers, in the hair of your armpits. They are a crawling, biting reminder of your own filth. You reach a hand inside your shirt, scratching lazily at a bite on your ribs. The relief is momentary. The lice are nesting in the seams of the flannel, laying their eggs in the heavy wool. In the heat of the day, they are active, a battalion of tiny tormentors marching across your skin. You know that if you were to take your shirt off and hold it over a fire, you would hear them popping like popcorn, a grim satisfaction you have indulged in many times before. Today, the effort of removing the shirt feels monumental. So you simply endure, shifting your weight, rubbing your back against the rough wood of the tent pole, a bear scratching an itch it cannot reach. A shadow falls across the tent opening. It is the ration detail, two men carrying a wooden crate and a steaming kettle. They move down the row of cots, dispensing the midday meal. The smell of it hits you before they arrive, a mixture of grease, burnt coffee, and something vaguely salty. When they reach you, one of the men drops a tin plate onto your lap. "Eat up," he says, not unkindly, but with the hurried tone of a man who wants to be elsewhere. He uses a ladle to slop a piece of meat and a splash of grease onto the plate, then tosses 2 squares of hardtack next to it. He fills your tin cup with the dark, black liquid from the kettle. You look at the meal. This is the fuel of the Army of the Potomac, the same ration you would receive if you were on the march, but here, in your condition, it looks less like food and more like a challenge. The meat is salt pork, known affectionately as sobelly or salt horse. It is a slab of white fat with a streak of lean meat, cured in so much brine that it glitters with salt crystals. It has been boiled, leaving it gray and gelatinous, quivering slightly on the tin plate. Next to it lies the hardtack. These are the famous army bread, 3-inch squares of flour and water, baked until they are hard enough to stop a bullet. They are also known as sheet iron crackers or tooth dullers. They are practically imperishable, which makes them excellent for logistics and terrible for digestion. You pick one up. It is light and dry, dusty to the touch. You turn it over and see the small holes punctured in the surface. You tap the cracker against the side of the cup. It makes a sharp, wooden sound. You know the drill. You have to break it up to eat it. Usually you would smash it with the butt of your musket or a rock, but you have neither here. Instead, you break off a corner with your thumb, the effort sending a tremor through your weak hand. You inspect the broken edge. It is clean. No weevils today. Sometimes the hardtack is infested with small worms or beetles. The veterans call them worm castles and joke that the bugs are the only fresh meat they get. You are supposed to throw the cracker in your coffee to scald the bugs out. They float to the top, and you skim them off before eating the sludge that remains. But today, the bread is just stale, not alive. You drop the piece into the coffee. The coffee is black, bitter, and boiling hot. It is likely not pure coffee. The supply contractors often cut it with chicory, roasted rye, or even ground dandelion root. But it is hot, and it contains caffeine, the only stimulant allowed to you. You watch the hardtack float, absorbing the black liquid, turning from a rock into a brown, soggy paste. You lift the cup to your lips. The heat stings your inflamed gums. The mercury has left your mouth sensitive, the tissue raw and spongy. You take a sip, wincing as the hot liquid washes over the loose teeth. It tastes of char and metal, but it warms the hollow ache in your stomach. You use your finger to fish out the softened hardtack and slide it into your mouth. Requires no chewing, which is a mercy. You swallow the paste, feeling it slide down heavy and dense. The salt pork is impossible. You try to cut a small piece with your pocket knife, but the thought of the grease sliding down your throat makes your stomach turn. The dysentery has left you with no appetite for fat. You push the meat to the side of the plate. Later, you might trade it with another soldier for some tobacco or a newspaper, if anyone has one. Or maybe the rat that visited you yesterday will return. You finish the coffee and the hardtack, wiping the crumbs from your beard. The meal sits heavy in your gut, a stone dropped into a well. The energy it provides is minimal, but it is something. The consumption of food triggers the inevitable biological reaction. The cramps return, low and twisting. The mercury is still purging you, and the dysentery has not yielded. You know you have to move. You have to go to the sinks. This is the great ordeal of the day. The sinks, or latrines, are located 100 yards from the hospital tents, downwind in theory, but the wind is fickle today. You slide your legs off the cot, your boots hitting the dirt. You don't bother lacing them. Your feet are swollen anyway. You stand up, swaying. The world narrows to a tunnel for a moment, the blood rushing from your head. You grab the tent pole to steady yourself, waiting for the gray spots to clear from your vision. You step out of the tent into the full glare of the afternoon sun. The light is blinding, bouncing off the white canvas of the hundreds of tents arranged in neat rows. You squint, shielding your eyes with a trembling hand. The heat hits you like a physical blow, wrapping around you, instantly bringing a sheen of sweat to your forehead. but it is a cold sweat, the clammy perspiration of fever. You begin the walk. It is a slow, shuffling procession. You are not alone. Other men are making the same journey, ghosts in blue or gray uniforms, their suspenders hanging down, their faces pale and drawn. No one speaks. There is no energy for conversation. You focus on placing one foot in front of the other, navigating the ruts in the dried mud. You pass the dead house, a small tent set apart from the others. The flap is closed, but you know what is inside. The boy from last night is there, waiting for the burial detail. You look away, focusing on the tree line where the sinks are dug. The sinks are long, open trenches, dug deep into the clay. The dirt from the excavation is piled high on the backside, meant to screen the users from view, but it does little to hide the reality. A long wooden pole has been set up on forked sticks over the trench to serve as a seat. The smell is profound. It is a dense, organic wall of odor that you can taste in the back of your throat. It is the smell of thousands of men with intestinal diseases, concentrated in one strip of earth. The ground around the trench is crawling with flies, massive, iridescent blowflies that shimmer blue and green in the sun. They rise in a buzzing cloud as you approach, landing on your face, your hands, your lips. You wave them away weakly, but they are persistent. They are the true owners of the sinks. You find a space on the rail and sit. It is a precarious perch. Men have fallen in before, too weak to hold themselves up, tumbling backward into the filth. The fear of that humiliation keeps your grip tight on the rail, even as your hands cramp. This is the social center of the camp, strange as it sounds. It is where the rumors are born. The soldiers call them latrine rumors. As you sit there, sweating and miserable, you hear two men talking a few feet away. They are discussing a movement of the army, a general who has been sacked, a peace treaty that is supposedly being signed in Washington. None of it is true. They are stories invented to fill the void of information, passed from man to man until they become gospel. I heard Grant is drinking again, one man says, his voice raspy. I heard we're moving out Tuesday, the other replies. Back across the river. You listen, but you don't engage. You are too focused on the pain in your abdomen. Mercury is doing its work, stripping the lining of your bowels. The evacuation is painful and bloody. You look down at the dirt, closing your eyes, waiting for the spasm to pass. This is the unglamorous reality of the war. There are no flags here, no bugles, just men squatting over a ditch fighting their own bodies. When you are finished, you stand up, your legs shaking violently. You adjust your clothes, checking your trousers for lice again out of habit. The walk back to the tent feels twice as long. The sun is in your eyes now, and the camp seems to swim in a heat haze. You detour slightly on the way back, drawn by the sound of the hospital wagons. You pass the surgery tent. The flaps are tied open to allow for ventilation and light. Inside, you see the operating table, a simple door laid across two barrels. The surgeon is there, the same man who gave you the pills. He is working on a man's leg. You don't see the details, but you see the motion of his arm, the rhythmic back and forth of the saw. It is a sound like a carpenter cutting a 2x4, but wetter. Outside the tent near the entrance is a pile. It is covered with a tarpaulin, but the shape is unmistakable. It is the pile of amputated limbs, arms and legs discarded like scrap wood. The flies are thick there, a black, undulating carpet on the canvas cover. The sight doesn't horrify you anymore. You have seen it after every skirmish. It is just waste. It is just the debris of the war. You wonder vaguely if the boy's leg would have ended up there if he had lived another day. You shuffle past, the smell of chloroform following you. It is a sickly sweet chemical scent, oddly pleasant amidst the decay. It is the smell of mercy, the only thing standing between the wounded and the unimaginable pain of the knife. You reach the water wagon on your way back. It is a large barrel on wheels, drawn by two mules. A crowd has gathered, men holding out tin cups and canteens. You wait your turn. The water is warm, having baked in the barrel all morning. When you finally fill your cup, you see things floating in its specks of dirt, perhaps a dead gnat. You drink it anyway. You are dehydrated, your skin tenting when you pinch it. The water tastes of the wood and the river mud, but it is wet. You return to your tent and collapse onto the straw. The effort of the trip has depleted you entirely. You lie on your back, staring up at the canvas again. The sun has moved, and the shadow of the tent pole has shifted across the floor. The afternoon stretches out, an endless expanse of time. There is nothing to do. You have no books. You have no duties. You are simply existing. You watch a spider weaving a web in the corner of the tent frame. It moves with a precise, jerky rhythm, spinning silk to catch the flies that plague you. You feel a kinship with the spider. You are both just trying to catch a meal and stay alive in the corner of this canvas world. You reach into your haversack and pull out the letter you started. The paper is soft and wrinkled, stained with sweat and tobacco. You found a pencil stub in your pocket earlier. You hold the paper up, trying to read what you wrote. Dear Mother, I hope this finds you well. The weather here is, the sentence trails off. You stare at the blank space. What can you say? Can you tell her about the mercury? About the loose teeth? About the boy who died next to you? About the pile of limbs under the tarp? No. You cannot burden her with that. You have to lie. You have to write the standard soldier's letter. You wet the pencil tip with your tongue, tasting the graphite. You press the lead to the paper. The weather here is hot, you write. But we are in good spirits. The food is plenty. You stop. The lie is exhausted. You cannot think of anything else to say. You put the paper down on your chest. You will finish it later. Maybe tomorrow. The heat in the tent is oppressive. You drift into a doze, a shallow sleep where you are still aware of the heat and the flies. You dream of ice. You dream of the ice house on your grandfather's farm, the blocks of river ice cut in January and packed in sawdust. You can see the condensation on the blocks, feel the cold air radiating from them. You dream of chipping off a piece of ice and putting it in your mouth, feeling it melt, cool and clean. You wake up with a start. A fly has crawled into your nose. You sneeze, a violent, painful spasm that racks your ribs. You brush the fly away, cursing softly. The sun has begun its descent. The light in the tent is turning golden, the harsh white glare softening. The shadows are lengthening again. The camp is shifting gears. The drilling has stopped. The evening fires are being lit. The hospital steward comes by again. He looks tired, his shoulders slumped. He is carrying a different bottle this time. It is not whiskey, it is beef tea or essence of beef. It is a thick, salty broth meant to strengthen the invalids. He pours a small amount into your cup. Drink this, he says. Doctor says you need to keep your strength up. You sip the broth. It is salty and tastes like iron, but it is better than the hardtack. It sits warm in your stomach. How are the gums? The steward asks. You open your mouth, showing him the inflamed tissue. He peers in, nodding. Salivating nicely, he says. That means the bile is moving. We'll give you another dose of the blue mass tonight. Your heart sinks. Another dose. More mercury. You want to protest. You want to tell him that the medicine is killing you, that you can feel your teeth loosening, that your stomach is on fire. But you don't. He is the authority. He is the man with the medical knowledge. You are just a farmer in a wool uniform. You nod, accepting your fate. Yes, sir, you whisper. He moves on to the next man. You lie back, watching the dust motes dancing in a shaft of sunlight that pierces a hole in the canvas. They swirl and drift, suspended in the air. You wonder how much of that dust is dried mud, how much is dead skin, how much is dried blood. You are breathing the camp. You are consuming it, and it is consuming you. The afternoon begins to fade into evening. The golden light turns amber, then gray. The heat breaks slightly. A small breeze rustling the tent flaps. The sounds of the camp change again. The band begins to tune up in the distance. A harmonica plays a lonely, wavering tune nearby. Home, Sweet Home. It is a song that is technically banned in some regiments because it makes the men too melancholy, causes desertions. But here in the hospital, no one stops it. You listen to the music. It makes your chest ache. You think of your own home, of the supper table set, the clock ticking on the mantel, the dog sleeping by the fire. It feels like a story you read in a book, not a life you actually lived. Your reality is this: the straw mattress, the smell of the latrine, the taste of metal, and the impending arrival of the blue pill. You prepare yourself for the night. You check your canteen half full of warm, dirty water. You pull the blanket up, though it is not cold yet. You are barricading yourself against the coming dark. You have survived the day. You have survived the heat, the hunger, and the doctor. Now you must survive the night. The sun dips below the horizon, and the gray twilight returns. The cycle continues. You are a cog in the machine of the Civil War, a broken cog that has been taken out and placed on a shelf to rust. But you are still here. You breathe in the cooling air, close your eyes, and wait for the steward's candle to appear in the darkness. The long, hot, boring day is over. The long, dark, painful night is about to begin. The lantern at the end of the ward is not a beacon. It is a single, weeping eye in the center of a canvas skull. As the evening deepens, the darkness outside presses against the tent walls, turning the fabric from a translucent screen into a solid, impenetrable barrier. The world of the camp, with its drills and its bugles, has ceased to exist. In its place, the hospital ward establishes its own geography, its own laws of physics, and its own warped passage of time. You are no longer in Virginia or Tennessee. You are in the kingdom of the sick, a borderland where the currency is endurance and the only ambition is to wake up. You lie on your back, the wool blanket pulled up to your chin, listening to the shift change of the sounds. The daytime noises, the sharp cracks of axes, the shouting of teamsters have been replaced by the intimate, terrifying acoustic landscape of the night. You can hear the man 3 cots down grinding his teeth, a sound like stones rubbing together underwater. You can hear the wet, bubbling breath of the pneumonia case across the aisle, a sound that reminds you of a pot boiling over on a stove you cannot turn off. And beneath it all, the low, constant hum of insects throwing themselves against the hot glass of the lantern, drawn to the light that kills them. Your own body is a landscape of small, specific miseries. Mercury has moved beyond the simple taste of metal. It has become a structural sensation. Your jaw feels heavy, the bones themselves seeming to ache with a deep, throbbing resonance. The salivation is constant now. You have to swallow every 30 seconds or turn your head to let the fluid drain onto the already stained ticking of the mattress. It is a humiliation that has become routine. You have stopped wiping your mouth. The effort is too great, and the result is temporary. You simply let the chemistry take its course. The evening brings with it the fever spike. It is a known phenomenon in the wards. As the sun goes down, the body's thermostat breaks. You feel a chill start in the small of your back, a cold finger tracing your spine. You pull the blanket tighter, curling your toes, but the cold is internal. It is the blood itself cooling, or so it feels. You start to shake, the cot trembling beneath you, the straw rustling with your vibrations. Your teeth, those loose, aching teeth, chatter against each other, sending sharp jolts of pain into your gums. Then, as quickly as it came, the cold vanishes, replaced by a suffocating heat. You kick the blanket off, sweat erupting from every pore. The air in the tent, already humid, feels like steam. You pant, your breath coming in shallow gasps, tasting the foul air of the ward. This is the cycle. Freeze, burn, freeze, burn. It is the rhythm of the infection fighting the poison, a war of attrition fought in the trenches of your veins. The flap of the tent opens, admitting a draft of cool night air that feels like a benediction. A figure enters, distinct from the steward. It is the chaplain. He moves differently than the medical staff. He is not hurried. He does not carry a bucket or a bottle. He carries a small, worn book. He walks down the aisle, stopping at random cots, his silhouette long and distorted in the lantern light. In the army, God is often as rationed as the coffee. The chaplain is a man who deals in the only commodity scarcer than quinine, hope. But in the dysentery ward, hope is a complicated thing. You watch him approach. He looks exhausted, his frock coat dusty, his face lined with the weight of 1,000 last confessions. He stops at your cot. "How is the spirit tonight, son?" he asks softly. You look up at him. You want to tell him that the spirit is fine, but the kidneys are failing. You want to ask him if there is a psalm for heavy metal poisoning. Instead, you just nod. It is the soldier's answer. You are always fine until you are dead. He places a hand on your forehead. His hand is cool and dry, a shocking contrast to your clammy skin. For a second, just a second, the human touch anchors you. It pulls you out of the fever dream. "Rest," he says. "There is peace in rest." He moves on. You watch him go, feeling a strange mixture of gratitude and resentment. He gets to leave. He gets to walk out of the tent, breathe the fresh air, and sleep in a place that doesn't smell of death. You are trapped here, a prisoner of your own biology. As the night settles, the ward's social structure reveals itself. The men who can talk, talk. It is a whispered, jagged conversation that jumps from topic to topic, driven by delirium and boredom. "I had a letter," a voice says from the darkness. "My girl says the peach trees are blooming in Ohio." "Peach trees don't bloom in August, you fool," another voice rasps. "They do in my head," the first man replies, and then he laughs, a dry, coughing sound that ends in a wheeze. You listen to them. They are constructing a world to replace this one. They are building a reality out of memories and lies. You think about your own memories, the farm, the smell of the barn in the morning, the sound of the creek. They feel thin, like paper worn through by too much handling. You try to conjure the face of your mother, but it keeps morphing into the face of the steward or the face of the boy who died yesterday. The mercury is eating your memory, eroding the neural pathways just as it erodes your gums. A commotion at the entrance breaks the reverie. 2 men are carrying a stretcher. This is not a sick case. This is a surgical case, brought here because the surgical tent is overflowing. They dump the man onto an empty cot near the door. He is conscious but silent, his eyes wide and shock-white. His arm is bandaged heavily, the white muslin already spotting with bright red arterial blood. The steward hurries over with his candle. You watch the play of light and shadow. The new man has lost a hand. You can tell by the shape of the bandage, a blunt, rounded stump where a wrist should be. He is staring at the ceiling, breathing in short, sharp hitches. He is in the shock phase, where the brain simply refuses to process the trauma. The steward checks the dressing, tightens a tourniquet, and gives the man a drink from a dark bottle. Opium, the lucky bastard. You feel a surge of envy so pure it almost overrides the nausea. He has lost a hand, but he has gained oblivion. You still have your hands, but you are present for every second of your slow dissolution. The night wears on. The lantern flickers, the oil running low. The shadows lengthen and merge, turning the corners of the tent into caves of absolute blackness. You close your eyes, trying to sleep, but the night terrors begin. These are not dreams. They are hallucinations born of the quinine and the fever. You open your eyes and see a dog sitting on the end of your cot. It is a black dog, large and shaggy, watching you with intelligent human eyes. You know intellectually that there is no dog. You blink and it dissolves into a pile of blankets. But a moment later, it is back. Then it changes. It becomes a woman in a black dress, sitting silently knitting. The needles click, 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 click. You realize the sound is the man down the row grinding his teeth, but your brain insists on the woman. You squeeze your eyes shut, pressing your palms against your eyelids until stars explode in the darkness. You focus on the physical sensations, the cramp in your gut, the ache in your jaw, the itch of the lice. These are real. These are your anchors. If you can feel pain, you are not mad. You are just poisoned. Sometime after midnight, the dead march begins again. It is not music. It is the sound of the prognosis becoming reality. The man with the pneumonia, the bubbling pot stops bubbling. The silence is sudden and deafening. You hear the rustle of the steward moving, the murmur of a final check, and then the heavy, dead weight being lifted. They carry him past your cot. You don't look. You don't want to see the face. If you see the face, he becomes a person. If he is a person, then you are a person, and people die. He remains a shape in a blanket. He is just logistics. He is just a bed opening up. And that is the darkest thought of the night. You are glad he is gone because it means more air in the tent. It means the steward will be less busy. It means you are one slot closer to the door. The survival instinct has stripped away your empathy, leaving only a cold, hard pragmatism. You are a creature of necessity now. A thirst strikes you, a sudden desert dryness that makes your tongue stick to the roof of your mouth. You reach for your canteen. It is empty. You drank the last of the warm sludge hours ago. Panic flares in your chest. To be without water in the fever ward is a torture beyond description. You try to call out for the steward. Water, you croak. The sound is barely a whisper. The steward is at the far end of the tent, tending to the amputee. He doesn't hear you. You try again, pushing air through a throat that feels lined with sandpaper. Water, nothing. You are alone. You look at the canteen, mocking you with its lightness. You think about crawling to the water bucket near the door. It is perhaps 40 feet away. It might as well be 40 miles. You calculate the effort, swinging the legs over, standing up, walking, the room spinning, the risk of falling, the humiliation. You decide to wait. You will wait until he comes back this way. You lie there, licking your cracked lips, fantasizing about a spring you once found in the woods near your home. The water bubbled up through the moss, clear and ice cold. You can remember the taste of it, clean, mineral, sharp. You hold that memory in your mouth, trying to extract moisture from the thought. The hours drag. The night is measured not in minutes, but in the throbbing of your gums. The mercury is loosening the roots of your molars. You can feel them shifting slightly when you clench your jaw. It is a terrifying sensation, the structural integrity of your own skull failing. You wonder if your teeth will be found in the straw after you are gone, little white monuments to the surgeon's skill. Finally, the steward passes. You wave a hand, a weak, fluttering gesture. He stops. He sees the canteen. He takes it without a word, walks to the bucket, fills it, and brings it back. He holds it to your lips. You drink greedily, water spilling down your chin, soaking into the collar of your shirt. It is warm, dirty, and the best thing you have ever tasted. Easy, he says. Don't sick it up. You fall back onto the pillow, exhausted by the act of drinking. The steward moves on. You are safe for another hour. As the deep night sets in, the hours between 2:00 and 4:00 a.m., the tent seems to breathe. The canvas walls expand and contract with the wind outside. The shadows take on a rhythmic quality. You drift into a state that is neither sleep nor wakefulness. It is the gray zone, the place where the conscious mind uncouples from the body. In this state, you are not a soldier. You are not a patient. You are a point of consciousness floating in a sea of discomfort. You think about the war. It seems absurd now. The idea of lines on a map, of states' rights, of unions and confederacies. It all dissolves in the face of the blue pill. The only war that matters is the one happening in your intestines. The only territory worth fighting for is the integrity of your own skin. You remember the recruitment rally in your town, the flags, the speeches about glory and manhood, the girls waving handkerchiefs. No one mentioned the latrines. No one mentioned the lice. No one mentioned that the doctor would give you poison and call it a cure. You feel a flash of anger, hot and sharp, but it burns out quickly. Anger requires energy. You have none to spare. A sound from outside catches your attention. It is the picket guard challenging someone. Halt, who goes there? Friend with the countersign. Advance, friend. The exchange is ritualistic, comforting. It means the army is still there. It means there is a perimeter. It means you are guarded. But guarded from what? The enemy is not the rebels in the gray coats. The enemy is the bacteria in the water barrel. The enemy is the mercury in the vial. The pickets can't stop that. You roll onto your side, seeking a cooler patch of straw. There is none. The mattress has absorbed your fever heat. You are lying on a radiator of your own making. You stare at the back of the man next to you. He is shivering, his shoulders hunched. You can hear him murmuring a prayer over and over. Our Father, who art in heaven, our Father, who art in heaven. He never gets past the first line. His mind is stuck in a loop, a broken record of supplication. You find yourself mouthing the words along with him, a silent duet in the dark. It is not about belief. It is about rhythm. It is about the comfort of known words in a world of unknown horrors. The darkness seems to thicken, pressing down on your chest. You wonder if this is it. You wonder if you will wake up. The thought is not terrifying. It is merely curious. You are so tired. The exhaustion is a physical weight pressing you into the earth. To stop fighting, to just let go would be so easy. To let the mercury win. To let the fever burn itself out. But a stubbornness remains. A small, hard kernel of defiance deep in your gut. You will not die here. You will not die in a tent that smells of unwashed feet and chloroform. You will not let the surgeon be right. You will endure. You will wait for the sun. You focus on the lantern again. The oil is almost gone. The flame is sputtering, jumping in the draft. It is fighting to stay alit. You decide that as long as the lantern burns, you will stay awake. You will keep watch. You will be the sentinel of your own survival. You watch the flame. It dips, flares, dips again. It turns blue at the base. It is consuming the last of the fuel. It is a small struggle, unnoticed by the universe, but to you, it is epic. The flame flickers one last time and dies. The darkness is absolute. For a moment, panic rises. You are blind. You are alone in the black void. But then your other senses expand to fill the gap. You smell the rain coming, a clean, sharp scent cutting through the humidity. You hear the wind picking up, snapping the canvas. You feel the coolness of the approaching storm. The rain begins. It starts as a slow patter on the roof, distinct individual drops hitting the tight canvas. Tap, tap, tap. Then it accelerates. It becomes a drum roll, a roar. The sound washes over the tent, drowning out the coughing, the grinding teeth, the prayers. It creates a wall of white noise that isolates you, wraps you in a cocoon of sound. It is the most beautiful thing you have heard in months. It is the sound of the world washing itself clean. You close your eyes, listening to the deluge. Air in the tent cools rapidly. The humidity breaks. You pull the blanket up, and for the first time in days, you feel a genuine physical comfort. The storm rages outside, but inside, under the wool and the canvas, you find a small, quiet space. The pain in your jaw dulls. The cramps recede slightly. The mercury is still there, the fever is still there, but the rain has given you a truce. You drift. The images in your mind soften. The dog is gone. The knitting woman is gone. There is only the rain. You are floating on it. You are back home, lying in the loft of the barn, listening to a summer storm hammer on the tin roof. You are safe. You are whole. You sleep. Not the drugged, fevered stupor of the day, but a real sleep. A sleep of exhaustion and small relief. The evening developments are over. The deep night has claimed you. And in the darkness, while the rain falls on the Army of the Potomac, you steal a few hours of peace from the jaws of the war. The cycle will start again tomorrow. The bugle will sound. The sun will bake the canvas. The surgeon will come with his blue pills. But for now, in the heart of the night, you are simply a man asleep in the rain, and that is enough. The dawn breaks with a brutal clarity, stripping away the temporary solace of the rain. The storm has passed, leaving behind a cold, clinging dampness and a camp that is now a landscape of slick, treacherous mud. The air is sharper, holding the concentrated aromas of the earth and the latrines. You wake not gradually, but abruptly, the mercury in your system asserting itself with a renewed intensity. The brief truce of sleep is over. You sit up slowly, your body protesting the movement with a symphony of aches. The first thing you notice is the heavy, grinding pain in your jaw. You touch your tongue to your lower front teeth. They are noticeably looser than they were yesterday, moving with a slight, spongy give against your gum line. This is the physical measure of the cure, the visual evidence of the poison doing its work. Your mouth is a ruin, the gums inflamed, dark red and spongy, the saliva production thick and metallic. You crawl out of the tent into the chaotic morning. The mud is deep, the consistency of thick, cold soup. It sucks at your unlaced boots, making every step a monumental effort. You are headed, inevitably, back to the surgeon's call. The line is shorter today. The night has been an efficient purifier of the weak, and the burial detail is already at work near the tree line. You find the surgeon in his tent. He is standing over the operating table, washing his hands in a basin of water that is already gray with previous rinsings. The water will be used again. He looks at you, his eyes tired but sharp. He doesn't ask how you feel. He asks how you purged. The question is about function, not comfort. The bowels moved freely, sir, you rasp, tasting the metallic copper of your own mouth. And the thylism, he asks, using the medical term for the salivation. You simply open your mouth. He peers in, tilting your chin back with a rough finger. He examines your gums. He sees the inflammation, the loosened teeth, the excessive saliva. He nods, satisfied. Excellent, he says, with genuine professional pride. The system is cleansed. The fever is driven out by the flow. He reaches into his field chest and produces another blue mass pill. One today, he commands. We will maintain the effect. You swallow the pill. It is sweeter this time, the mercury dissolving into the wreckage of your gut. He gives you a small pamphlet, a guide for convalescence, and a small tin of salve for your irritated lips. You will be back on light duty by tomorrow, he says. We need every man. You are dismissed. The visit has taken 3 minutes, and you are now officially a convalescent, a body deemed ready to return to the machine of the army, even as the poison is still circulating. The medical bureaucracy has pronounced you healed, but your body knows the truth. The rest of the morning is a slow, agonizing process of reintegration. The hospital steward, seeing your improved status, assigns you a task, hauling a crate of hardtack from the supply wagon to the company mess tent. The crate is heavier than you expect, roughly 60 pounds of dense, non-perishable crackers. You shoulder the crate, the rough wood digging into your collarbone. You begin the long, miserable walk through the churned mud of the camp. Each step is a struggle against the sticky clay, your weak legs threatening to give out with every slip. The exertion sends a cold sweat breaking out across your back. You breathe hard, the air sawing in your lungs. You have to stop every 50 feet, setting the crate down, hands trembling, and leaning against it to catch your breath. This is the great cruelty of convalescence in the Civil War. There is no time for recovery. You are expected to snap back to full strength the moment the fever breaks, regardless of the chemical damage wrought by the cure. As you walk, you pass the cookfires where the company's rations are being prepared. The smell of frying salt pork and coffee is now bearable, even faintly desirable. You see men clustered together, using their bayonets to scrape the mud off their boots. You finally reach the mess tent and drop the crate onto the damp earth. The sound is a heavy thud. The mess sergeant, a burly man with a permanent scowl, grunts a thanks and tosses you a reward, a single piece of dried, smoked beef. It is called jerked beef or beef leather, so tough you have to soak it for an hour to soften it enough to chew. You take the piece of meat, putting it into the pocket of your coat. You don't have the strength to chew it, and your teeth certainly can't handle the strain. But it is a resource, a small piece of caloric wealth in a world defined by scarcity. You return to your tent, exhausted. The bed has already been claimed. The hospital tent operates on a strict policy. If you are well enough to walk, your cot is immediately reassigned to a man who can't. This is the hard, cold logic of survival. You find a dry spot near the tent pole, pull your blanket around your shoulders, and sit down on the ground. You have been officially cured and exiled. You are now in the limbo between the sick and the healthy, possessing the status of a convalescent but the body of an invalid. The rest of the afternoon is a study in boredom and anxiety. You are too weak to drill, too toxic to eat much, and too restless to sleep. You spend the hours watching the ceaseless human traffic of the camp. You watch the relief party's men detailed to drag logs for firewood or haul barrels of water from the stream that is both the source of life and the source of all disease. They are exhausted, their faces grimed with dirt and sweat, but they are the engine of the army. You notice the difference between the men who have been ill and the men who haven't. The healthy men walk with a spring in their step, their shoulders back. The convalescents like you shuffle, their bodies hunched, their eyes sunken, moving with the careful economy of men who know their energy is finite. The sickness has marked you, leaving a permanent shadow of vulnerability around your eyes. You reach into your coat and take out the small tin of salve the surgeon gave you. It is a yellowish, greasy ointment, smelling faintly of turpentine. You rub a small amount onto your lips, which are cracked and dry from the fever. The feel of the grease is strangely comforting, a small act of self-care in a world that offers none. The day drags on. You begin to observe the details of hygiene in the camp, the tiny rituals that mark the difference between the man who endures and the man who succumbs. You see a veteran soldier, a corporal, take his razor and a cup of warm coffee. He is not shaving. He is preparing to clean his teeth. He dips the corner of his rag into the coffee, scoops up some wood ash from a fire pit, and rubs the alkaline ash onto his finger. He then proceeds to scrub his teeth with his finger, rubbing the gritty paste along his gums. It is a crude and abrasive method, certainly damaging the enamel, but the ash acts as a mild abrasive, and the alkalinity slightly combats the putrefaction that accompanies scurvy and gum disease. The corporal is trying to fight the slow decay of army life. You watch him and then you try it yourself. You find a piece of charred wood from the dead fire pit, crush it between your fingers, and rub the black soot and ash onto your teeth. The taste is bitter and metallic, but the scrubbing motion provides a momentary relief to the ache in your gums. When you spit, the residue is black and dark with the blood from your inflamed tissues. The mercury is still winning, but you have mounted a small, symbolic defense. As the afternoon sun begins to angle towards the west, the humidity returns, raising the collective temperature and stench of the camp. The heat coaxes the insects out in a buzzing swarm. You pull your blanket over your head to shield yourself from the sun and the flies. Under the blanket, in the dusty gloom, you think about the future. The doctor said you'd be on light duty tomorrow. What will that be? Digging latrines, hauling wagons. You know it will be the most physically demanding job the surgeon can find, a way to test if the cure has truly held. The army does not waste time on true rest. You think about the letter again, the one you started yesterday. You pull it out, the soft, wrinkled paper warm from your body heat. You read the 2 lines. Dear Mother, I hope this finds you well. The weather here is hot. You take the pencil stub and write the next sentence. You decide to write about the one thing that is universally true and yet entirely detached from your current suffering, the geography. The country we are in now is hilly, with many pine trees and thick underbrush. The river is wide and swift. It is a bland, factual sentence, devoid of all emotion or danger. It is the perfect sentence for a mother. You continue, filling the space with details that are real but harmless. You write about the shape of the clouds, the sound of the frogs at night, the way the cavalry horses look when they are grazing. You are building a protective wall of mundane detail around the terrifying truth of your existence. You write about the food, lying easily about the quality. The rations are plentiful and the coffee is strong. You write nothing of the hardtack or the salt horse. You write nothing of the lice. When you finish, the short letter is filled. It is a clean, sanitized narrative of army life, a necessary deception. You fold the paper carefully, find an envelope from your haversack, and lick the edge to seal it. The dryness of your tongue makes the paper stick immediately. It is ready for the mail wagon. You have just sent a version of yourself home, a man who is healthy, patriotic, and well-fed. The sick, mercury-poisoned man remains here under the canvas. You slump against the tent pole, watching the day's work come to an end. The work details are returning, covered in mud and dust. The horses are being led to the watering hole. The smoke from the evening fires is beginning to rise in straight, thin columns against the darkening sky. The day, the fourth part of your experience, has been defined by the crushing demands of logistics, the heavy crate, the slippery mud, the return to work, the lie in the letter. It is the phase where the body transitions from acute illness to chronic vulnerability. You have survived the doctor and the immediate fever, but you are left with the lingering systemic destruction of the heroic cure. You are weak, you are compromised, and you are surrounded by conditions that guarantee a relapse. The man in the next cot shifts, his coughing fit beginning again. You watch the shadow of the movement. He is not a convalescent. He is a new arrival, his fever just beginning its ascent. You have moved slightly up the social ladder of the sick. You are a survivor. You close your eyes and lean back. The smell of wood smoke and frying meat is strongest now, signaling the final meal of the day. You feel a pang of genuine hunger, the first in days. The mercury seems to have done its work, leaving a void where the nausea used to be, but there is no food for you yet. As a convalescent, you are often last in line. You will have to wait for the final feeding of the men on light duty. You wait, listening to the murmurs of the camp, feeling the cold dampness of the earth seeping into your back. The sunset is a garish affair of blood red and orange, visible only as a fiery wash across the eastern face of the clouds. It is a spectacular and terrifying display of color. As the light fades, you prepare for the night again. Tonight, there will be no opium for the amputee, no sudden rain. There will only be the long wait for the sun, the knowledge of the single blue pill inside you, and the slow, grinding fight to keep your teeth in your skull. You are not a hero. You are not a glory hound. You are a man in a tent, fighting a war against the tiny, invisible armies of bacteria and the giant, ignorant army of misplaced medicine. The long evening has arrived. The final part of your endurance test is about to begin. The evening closes in, not with the abruptness of the night before, but with a slow, deliberate tightening of the horizon. You are still sitting against the tent pole, the mud beneath your boots turning from a slick paste to a stiff, cold clay. The air is still and heavy, carrying the scent of supper, the grease and smoke, but also the more persistent, chilling odor of decay that clings to the medical sector of the camp. As a convalescent, you are at the bottom of the food chain. The healthy men eat first, then the men on light duty, and finally, the invalids who can walk to the mess tent. You watch the procession of men with their tin plates, feeling the ache of a genuine hunger in your stomach, a sensation you had almost forgotten during the acute phase of your sickness. When you finally make your way to the mess tent, the sun is long gone, and the only light comes from a sputtering lantern hung from the center pole. The air inside is thick with steam, and the sound of men eating quickly and silently. By the time you reach the serving table, the rations are meager. The mess sergeant gives you a scoop of what is left, a thin, watery soup made from boiled beans and whatever scraps of salt pork couldn't be used for frying. It is called slumgullion, a term for a thin stew or watery food. It is hot, which is its primary virtue. You take your tin cup of slumgullion and sit on a narrow bench, trying to eat slowly. The broth is weak, but the beans are soft, and the heat soothes the raw lining of your esophagus. You use your spoon to push the small pieces of soft, boiled meat into your mouth, taking care not to chew too hard, protecting your loose teeth. As you eat, you notice a small group of men clustered near the fire pit outside. They are not talking, but performing a ritual that is as ancient as the army itself, letter writing and reading. They are men who have just returned from the field, or men who have just received mail. They hold the fragile paper-thin letters close to the fire, their faces lit by the small, dancing flame. They are reading the news from home, the births, the deaths, the state of the crops, news that connects this muddy, violent reality to the stable world they left behind. You finish your soup, scrape the bottom of the tin cup with your spoon, and head back to your tent. Your brief status as an invalid is over. You are now merely a recovering soldier. Your cot is gone, but the steward allows you to spread your blanket on a piece of dry straw near the entrance. You lie down, pulling the wool over you. The night is colder than the previous ones, the earth radiating the chill absorbed during the day. The cold is a constant, grinding antagonist in the life of a Civil War soldier, a subtle force that preys on the already weakened. You feel the renewed, low throb of the mercury in your system. It is cumulative. The blue pill you took this morning is now binding to the enzymes in your gut, your kidneys, your liver. The doctor's maintenance dose is keeping the body in a state of low-grade chemical siege. It is a terrifying realization. You must trust the man who is feeding you poison to keep you alive. You are trapped in the heroic medical paradigm, where the cure is often indistinguishable from the disease. The final part of the evening is defined by a deep, reflective isolation. The sounds of the camp are fading, the singing, the card games, the last of the laughter. The sentries are posted, their feet crunching softly on the packed earth of the outer perimeter. You are left alone with your thoughts. You think about the one thing the army cannot control, the weather. You watch the stars appear in the gap where the tent flaps parts slightly. They are brilliant tonight, cold pinpricks of light in the vast, inky blackness. They are the same stars that your mother sees, the same constellations that the boy who died next to you saw in his final delirium. They are a constant, indifferent presence that spans the miles and the centuries. You lie there, counting the stars that are visible in your narrow sliver of sky, trying to distract yourself from the ache in your mouth and the cold seeping into your joints. You realize that the entire structure of your day, the regimented existence of the camp, the drills, the marches, the battles, is an attempt to impose order on a fundamentally chaotic, uncontrollable reality. And the sickness, the dysentery, the mercury, the flies, these are the chaos breaking through the order. They are the natural world asserting its dominance over the human endeavor of war. You drift into the final phase of the night, a twilight state where the mind processes the information of the last 5 days. You see the flash of a bayonet on the surgeon's boot. You smell the cloying sweetness of gangrene. You feel the scratch of the lice in your seams. You taste the copper and rose water of the blue pill. These are the sensory memories that will mark you, a permanent etching on your consciousness. You are a survivor. You have endured the bullet and the bacterium, the lack of food and the presence of poison. Survival has come at a cost that is counted not in money or glory, but in the slow erosion of your physical and psychological integrity. You will carry the mercury in your bones for the rest of your life, a subtle tremor in your hand, a vulnerability in your gut, a memory of loose teeth. You will never again trust a glass of water without question. You will never again hear the word cure without a deep, involuntary fear. The only thing left is to wait for the morning. You pull your blanket tighter, curling into the straw. The cold deepens, settling into the damp earth. You stop fighting the cold and simply embrace it, letting the stiffness creep into your muscles. You become heavy, motionless, conserving every precious calorie. Sometime in the final hours before dawn, the deepest, most necessary sleep claims you. It is a heavy, dreamless oblivion, a gift earned through sheer physical endurance. You are suspended in the perfect, temporary stillness of the final dark. You are alive. You have completed the cycle. You have passed through the ordeal of the hero's medicine and emerged on the other side, marked but not broken. The last sound you hear just before sleep takes you completely is the faint, distant rhythm of the bugle, the first tentative notes of the call to reveille. It is the sound of the army waking up, demanding that you rise. You ignore it, letting the sound fade into the blackness. You will not rise for the bugle. You will rise when the sun is warm on your face. You will rise because you have survived. And for the man on the straw, that is the only victory that matters.